Hey, welcome back to another Type 5 how-to. It's the start of the fall and the pool's really cold, so it's time for me to go ahead and close it up. So let me take you through the steps that I'm doing to make sure that I give myself as good of a chance to keep this pool clear when I open it up in the spring. So let's get to it. Now, while my pool looks rather clear right now and the chemicals are pretty well balanced, since it's right under these trees here, it's getting a lot of leaves and acorns that have been falling into it. So if I just tried to close up the pool right now without cleaning it, all of that organic material will start to decay and will form algae. And so then when you go to open that pool up in the spring, it's going to be a real dark green. So the first thing that I want to do is go around and scoop out all of this debris, make sure that I vacuum the bottom of the pool and make it as clean as possible. Now, if you have a little bit of algae, you want to go ahead and add in some shock and make sure to kill that off, preferably some calcium hypochlorite type of shock. And then make sure that water is really clear before we start buttoning up the pool. So let's get to that. All right, now that the pool's looking nice and clear, we got to decide how we actually want to close it up. You'll notice I have two inlets and an outlet port flowing water in and out of this pool, and I have to decide, do I either want to drain the water down so that it's below all of those holes, or do I want to keep it up high? Now, last year when I closed up the pool, I drained it down and used a cover to try to keep that water from coming out the sides, and the cover lasted me about halfway through the winter until the snow piled up on top of it, and the cover wasn't large enough, and it actually ended up stretching and tearing, and then all your efforts are for naught, and you have a nice green pool in the spring. So this year, what I would really recommend is get some plunger type valves so that we can actually close up all of these outlets and keep our water level up high. Now, I've already upgraded this outlet back into the pool to a larger valve for our larger pump. So that has a plunger on it. We'll turn that off. Okay. So that's closed, and then I can disconnect that hose there. This one over here, there's a specific style adapter that you can get that goes from 1 1/4 inch to allow you to add a plunger valve to this. So I'll go ahead and close this one up, and then I'll need to change this one to be a plunger valve as well so that I can close it up. So I'll show you how I'm doing that here. Now, to install one of these plunger valves, you're going to need one of those black stoppers that you can use to plug off the water from the inside of the pool. So I'll go ahead and put that on, and then make sure that this is turned closed to the right, and you'll need the actual plunger valve itself and an Intex Type B adapter. I would go ahead and recommend just to have this already screwed together, because once we take this off, it may be leaking a little bit of water because that black adapter isn't 100% waterproof. All right, so now that we have this screwed on and ready to go, I'll disconnect the hose, and then we can attach this, and then we can remove the adapter and make sure that no water leaks out. Be careful not to over tighten that screw or it could strip. But then we'll remove the black stopper. You might hear this fill up with a little bit of water, but you can see now we have a plunger valve there. And of course, we can go around and make sure that we disconnect the rest of our inlet and outlet hoses, making sure that the water doesn't leak out of the pool. And at this point, once all the hoses are disconnected, you can start taking apart the pump and storing that however you'd like. You can dump out the sand that's currently in the pump. You'll want to use fresh sand next year, but that should be ready to go. Now, for our next step, you may notice that I have the hose currently filling up the pool a little bit more. Right now, it's down to this second square. I want to raise this up maybe another square, only have 1.5 squares showing here. Ideally, I like the water level to be rather high. so that when I add the pool pillow next and the cover, it creates a slope where all of that excess water and snow will drain off instead of sitting on top of the pool. So while this is filling up, I'm gonna go ahead and add a couple more chlorine pucks into my floater here. I'm not gonna really mind if the chlorine level is too high over the winter. Hopefully that'll keep the algae there at bay and we can worry about lowering that chlorine in the spring. And then if you have one of these smart pool monitors, now would be a good time to take it inside, put it into its winterized mode, and maybe store it in a glass of water, since these sensors have to be wet at all times. So let's go ahead and get this pool pillow installed and get the cover on next. Of course, we're gonna have to blow up this air pillow. This one has a rather large valve, so if you have an air mattress pump, that'll do really good to blow this up rather quickly. Of course, I don't have one of those, so I'm gonna have to do it the old-fashioned way. Well, now that the pillow's all blown up and I'm completely out of breath, you're gonna have to tie some string to each of these four corners of the pillow. I'd recommend you do that ahead of time before you try to float the pillow out into the center of the pool, because once it's out there, you're not going to be able to tie the string onto each corner. Make sure that you give yourself plenty of slack here so that as you're positioning it, you can lay all of these strings out. If you have an extra set of hands, that can potentially be helpful, but you can do this with one person depending on the size of your pool. You may also potentially tie the string on here and then on the other end tie like a ball or something if you have a real long or large pool, and then you could toss it over the other edge. That way that you can grab it and do this as a one-person job. So I'll tie this up and get it centered, and then we can start working on the cover. All right, so I'm pretty happy with the way that the pillow's turned out. The next step is to get the cover in place. So you can see here I've already laid out the cover on the ground, and most of these covers include a wire and then a type of ratcheting mechanism that you can use to tighten down that wire. So to feed this wire through, I started where these two grommets are close together, going up and over all the way around, and fed it around until they've met here back in the middle. Now, to get this mechanism to work, you want to feed the ends of the wire through each of these holes and then through the center here, and then we'll be able to tighten it up. Now, in order to get this second one through, it might be a little bit easier if once it's through a little bit, you go ahead and turn it just a little so that you can snag that wire through. Now, if you need to release this, you can press this latch here and we can wind it backwards again. And once we get this onto the pool, we'll tighten this up and ratchet it down. So let's head on over to the pool and get this cover in place. Okay, like I said, once we're happy with where the cover is in terms of getting it centered over the top of the pool, I'll go ahead and pull these wires through our ratcheting mechanism here. Okay, and then once it's kind of hand tight, we'll go ahead and turn it clockwise just enough to keep that wire tight there. You know, we're not trying to have the wire dig into the sides of the pool. I just want it to keep this cover down. Now, I could stop here, and at this point, this would probably be good enough to get me through the winter. But if you want to take it a step further, remember I said the goal is to try to get the water to run off, and right now you can see there's some low spots where the water would really kind of pool in this area, and I don't want a lot of extra weight on here, if at all possible. So I've invested in a few of these little clips, and I'll leave links in the description to everything that I've used here in this process. And with these clips, for our frame pools, I can stretch this cover a little bit further and snap it down and try to just tighten it up a little bit. If I needed to in the winter, I could come out here and create a little bit of extra slack. But I found that generally having roughly 2 clips per section is a good amount to create that nice stretch. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this all the way around the pool, and that should finish it up. Well, I'm really happy with the way that this pool has turned out, and if you found this video helpful, feel free to give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more tips and tricks like this in the future. Well, that's going to do it for today's project. Hopefully I'll see you all on the next one.